gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this on January 19th, 2022. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Microsoft's job cuts hit Xbox, and we found Pharrell's $20,000 PSP. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa. Jan, how are you doing?
Terrible. I haven't had hot water in my house for 5 days now. I've been going to a gym in the morning to shower.
Oh, no.
But I guess that's fine. Like, I'm not paying for the water at that point. I don't know.
It's not fine, Jan. I really appreciate you trying to find the silver lining, but no, it's not fine. Like, it's just isn't.
Yeah, I'm just gonna decide to not pay my rent next month.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. That's where you got to draw the line. Absolutely. I did. I woke up this morning, got the kids ready for school. I was still tired. I laid down. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna set an alarm for 20 minutes from now. I'm gonna let myself fall asleep. That alarm went off. I woke up. I decided to sleep another 10 minutes, Jan. And in that 10-minute period, I had a very realistic dream that one of the rooms in my house was actively flooding, and it ruined my day. Because I'm like, now I got to deal with this all day. It's happening. It was raining last night, so clearly I'm like thinking about that, and I own this home now, so it's like, okay, this is my problem. Boy, that's I don't want that to happen. Now, so far, so good. I woke up and I was like, oh my God, it's a relief, but I could still feel like the cortisol or whatever it is in my body, just like reacting to that stressor. I'm like, oh, please, I can't deal with this right now. So, yeah, how do you feel about cold showers? Have you ever engaged in a cold shower, Jan?
I really thought about it, and I was hyping myself up 4 or 5 days ago when the hot water went out. It's like, I could take a cold shower.
Yeah.
No problem. I turn on the cold water, and then I jump in, and I immediately jump out. And then I'm thinking, I'm too old for this shit.
Mm-hmm. I like a cold shower at the very end of my hot shower. So I take the hot shower, and then at the end, I slowly, like, it's the reverse of what they do to lobsters. I just slowly turn it down, colder and colder and colder, and it feels good. It apparently has health benefits. I don't want to like sound like a Joe Rogan podcast or whatever. Like, oh, here's my neurotropic cold shower thing that I'm doing, but I enjoy it. I'll say that much. And it's like 2 minutes is the max I can stand.
No, yeah. You're blanching yourself. You know, you're doing. You're treating your body like people cook vegetables, you know, hot water and then a splash of cold.
Exactly. I want to feel crispy. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there we go.
People appreciate that when I feel crispy. So I'm going for it.
I know I do.
Yes. Thank you, Jan. Okay. I hope you get your hot water back, though. And is there like a timeline on it?
I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, no. Don't pay your rent next month. All right.
I'm just not gonna.
Let's get into this mess. Before we do, though, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into. So let's start the morning mess with Microsoft. Mass layoffs reportedly impact Bethesda and Halo Infinite teams. So we got a series of stories here, Jan. It's gonna be one bummer after another and pretty frustrating stuff when you really think about it. So let's get into it. From Michael McWhorter at Polygon. Microsoft announced Wednesday that it will be cutting 10,000 jobs over the next 2 months, slashing about 5% of its overall workforce. CEO Satya Nadella did not detail precisely where those cuts would take place across the company, but noted in a letter to employees there would be changes to our hardware portfolio, which could impact Microsoft's HoloLens, Surface, and PC accessories business, The Verge reports. According to Bloomberg, Microsoft's layoffs are also affecting the Xbox's division's games team, with reported cuts at Starfield developer Bethesda Game Studios and Halo Infinite developer 343 Industries. The number of layoffs impacting the games teams is unknown, and when contacted for clarification, a Microsoft spokesperson declined to comment. Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier said on Twitter that sources said 343 Industries was hit hard. A report from Kotaku corroborated Bloomberg's reporting and noted that employees at Gears of War Studio, the coalition, were also affected. That studio is currently working on several unannounced projects, Xbox Games Marketing VP Aaron Greenberg said last year. So we're starting here. There are multiple more aspects to the story. We'll get into those in a second. Jan, these are the richest companies in the history of the world. Microsoft often is just that. They don't need to lay off anyone. The thing that always comes to mind into my mind when we start talking about business decisions, and I think this, I come at it from this perspective a lot on this show, and for me, it's just because this is what makes sense. But I think a lot of people will hear it, and I think it sounds defensive of these companies. There is no such thing as really need in business. They do what they can. They don't need to charge you $70 for a video game. They do. They charge it because they can, and they can get away with it. And this is exactly what's happening here. They don't need to lay off anyone. They are making historical profits and have been for years. But they can get away with laying off 10,000 people right now because the markets won't react as negatively to that as if they did it in a different time period where it's like, well, you're supposed to be growing. This is a time of growth. Right now, it's not supposed to be a time of growth. Right now, it's like, oh, well, we're expecting a recession, so you need to be cutting costs. And so they can, and they are, and it sucks. It's just it's so frustrating. And it's especially frustrating here in the United States where there is the social safety net is so limited and so inadequate. And that's 10,000 people now that are going to have to find a new way to get health insurance. They'll have some coverage in many of these cases, but they have to start thinking about that in a real active way. And it's a nightmare. I just don't know what else to say.
It's an absolute nightmare, especially, January is one of those months where cuts and layoffs tend to happen, at least here in the U.S. And it's not a great way to start the year, especially for folks that have children. They're halfway through the school year, and now that they have to deal with the stress of, is my kid going to be able to get the care that they need? I'm sure that, there's some adults out there that are trying to just bear with it and get through it. But also, this isn't the first major company to lay off a good, not a good chunk, but like their bottom line. And I'm positive the folks that were part of the last round of layoffs at a different company are still searching and looking for leads and opportunities. And this just floods the market with more people that need jobs, while Microsoft a couple months from now, hell, even a couple of weeks from now, will open up their doors again to try and get younger talent or other talent that they can pay less money. They don't have to do this. Is the thing. They love to report their numbers, but because there is like a recession on the way, they feel like they have to make the books look good, even if it comes at the cost of cutting 10,000 jobs for people and not giving them, like the proper parachute to help them land on their feet. Meanwhile, we have other companies that are letting go of people that definitely need to have been straight up fired, but they have a golden parachute.
Yeah, it is the kind of thing where you can look at it, we can see right through it, and I feel pretty helpless. And they are like, we're going to move on from this story pretty quickly in terms of the grand scheme of things. And they will have, like, what could we have done about it? Nothing. And you're right. You mentioned a lot of other companies are cutting a lot of jobs as well. Like 10,000 jobs is a lot. And then over at Amazon, they cut 15,000 jobs. And one of the other, Google, maybe it was like 11,000 jobs.
In Instagram and Meta, Facebook, whatever the hell you want to call it now.
And these are the companies. Yes, Meta. Yes, it was. Yes, Facebook. Yes, that was the one that was like 15,000. They have. These are the companies that have hundreds of thousands of employees, and so like this is also happening. I'm sure it's smaller firms that don't have those massive numbers. So when they lay a bunch of people off, it is instantly headline worthy. So it is happening across the industry, and there is when the CEOs speak to this, they say, well, we have to do this because we got really hit by the pandemic and everyone was moving online and we had to hire up real fast. Now the pandemic's over and we have just too many people. And it's, I mean, I guess, but it doesn't seem like you have too many people if we just look at what the money that you're making. You are making more money than ever. And you did that based on the growth that you experienced throughout the pandemic. And that was only possible based on hiring the people that you hired. And and now that things look slightly different or more precarious, instead of finding more creative ways to use these people that you hired. You're just immediately just cutting them off, and it just feels so volatile. Now,
yeah,
it's that volatility is something that's been baked into tech and games for so long, and people like understand it, but it is a volatility that I would have expected by now the games industry specifically, but the wider tech industry, to find ways to not affect employees so much. It always comes down to we are just going straight to layoffs, and it's like, man, that's the way it used to be. Is it still that way? Turns out yes. We are here, and it's just the way that they deal with their problems. And it's not even necessary problems, because again, they are making a ton of money. It's perceived problems that may happen in the future, and who has to pay 10,000 people at the bottom. It's frustrating.
And then this is amidst Microsoft trying to acquire Activision Blizzard.
Yes.
And taking on like a whole, I have no idea the size of the staff at Activision Blizzard. Huge. And then are those people going to get folded in, or if the acquisition goes through, or are a lot of those people just going to get let go? It's a tough time. Right. And we mentioned like tech and games media also is feeling the effects of these layoffs too, with like bigger companies at the top just thinking like, you know what, I'm not going to wait and see here. I'm just going to cut everyone.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we could point to the history of the last big acquisition from Microsoft, or one of the last ones. Hey, they acquired Bethesda and didn't lay off people until just now. And Bethesda is one of the companies impacted here underneath the Microsoft umbrella. So yeah, I think when we have to assume that when Microsoft gets, if it's able to acquire Activision, if not immediately, in the long run, of course those jobs would be up on the chopping block. And we always knew that was the case. Of course, that's the case. I'm like, have there been layoffs at Activision right now? I wonder if they are like just holding back because they're like, well, the Microsoft's going to acquire us and they can handle that. But I mean, either way, like we haven't heard of similar sort of cuts at Nintendo. I don't think it's happened at Ubisoft yet, although they aren't replacing people who have left. And they're like, we talked about this on the show earlier this week, where it's like they don't have a lot of choices. They need to be making games, so they need those people. Yeah. But like a lot of the other Sony's like, they are in kind of dire straits in terms of the value of their stock price, and every other division other than PlayStation being kind of in a rough spot. And yet you don't hear them cutting a lot of jobs at PlayStation. They're like, well, no, that's our bread and butter. We're going to make that work. So I don't know. It kind of goes counter to what Microsoft has said recently about, if you want to be a union under Microsoft, we're just going to welcome that because we're here to like treat the worker fairly. Yeah, this is like the least fair way you could treat a worker, to put yourself in a position, and the way you deal with it is by immediately cutting off 10,000 people. A lot of other stuff happening at Microsoft right now. Halo Infinite's head of creative, Joseph Staten, is reportedly leaving the 343 Industries studio. This comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. According to Bloomberg reporter Jason Schreier, Halo veteran Joseph Staten is leaving the developer to rejoin Xbox Game Studios Publishing. Staten previously left the publishing division, which partners with indie studios to create Xbox franchises, in 2020 to help 343 ship the troubled Halo Infinite. Having previously worked on the very first Halo titles, mostly focusing on story and characters, Staten was made project lead of the game's campaign mode. News of Staten's upcoming departure coincides with Microsoft's announcement of mass layoffs, which have hit its video game business across both Xbox and Bethesda. On Wednesday, the U.S. technology giant confirmed plans to lay off approximately 4.5% of its 220,000-person workforce. A report from Lords of Gaming claimed that 343 had suffered a significant number of layoffs, which are heaviest towards individuals working on the single-player side of the studio, and Schreier confirmed that as well. This is... and again, we're going to have more headlines based on this stuff. We'll get into that real quick. I don't know. I thought Staten was there for the long run to ensure the future of Halo. And boy, I don't even know what the future of Halo even means anymore, right?
It's insane to see the state that Halo is in. Like,
yes,
5-6 years ago, it was a juggernaut amongst like console franchises, even greater than just consoles at that point. And like the cultural hold it had on FPSs, and it's just wild to see the state that it's in.
Yeah.
Like I know that we joked around of like, hey, yeah, we'll check out the Halo Infinite co-op mode, and we didn't even realize it came out late last year. I don't. I'm scanning my brain. I can't remember if an actual announcement. I have no idea what the actual state of the game is, and that's not. And maybe that's because the circles I occupy just have no interest in it anymore.
Everyone stopped playing it though, like because it just had such a negative feeling after a while. Even I was enjoying playing it, but it's like at a certain point, no one wanted to go. Like I didn't want to convince people to come back and play with me, so I didn't.
Yeah,
and that's where I think I just spread throughout the community. I looking at this story, I do try to like place what can they do with Halo next, and it feels like at this point a complete reworking of who is actually making that game. Now, I imagine that the 10-year plan for that was always in place for Halo Infinite might continue in some way on the multiplayer side. There is a Halo sort of new mode that seems to be a battle royale coming from another studio. I can't remember the name of them. I want to say it's the team that's also working on that a Monster Hunter like game with EA. Certain Affinity is reportedly working on a battle royale mode that will probably also come out. But in terms of like a new Halo, a numbered Halo game, or a big DLC drop that expands the single player stuff within Halo Infinite, that seems off the table at this point. And it seems like it's probably time to give it a long rest and slowly build something up in a way that is that really understands what Halo needs to be and gives the team the time they need to think about what that means creatively and in terms of the amount of work it's going to take. But in the face of complaints from other former 343 Industries developers, it seems like things might also have to change at the very top. This is the next story. Ex-Halo developers slam incompetent leadership after layoffs. This comes from Ollie Welsh at Polygon. Management at Halo Infinite developer 343 Industries has come under fire from former staffers after the studio was reportedly hit hard by Wednesday's large-scale layoffs at Microsoft. In another worrying sign for the future of the studio and the Halo series, Bloomberg's Jason Schreier reported that Halo veteran Joseph Staten was leaving 343 after less than 3 years to rejoin the publishing team at Xbox. Patrick Wren, a former senior multiplayer designer on Halo Infinite, now working on Star Wars Jedi Survivor at Respawn, did not mince his words in regards to what's going on at 343 Industries. This is his quote. The layoffs at 343 shouldn't have happened, and Halo Infinite should be in a better state. The reason for both of those things is incompetent leadership up top during Halo Infinite development, causing massive stress on those working hard to make Halo the best it can be. The people I worked every day with were passionate about Halo and wanted to make something great for the fans. They helped push for a better Halo and got laid off for it. Devs still there are working hard on that dream. Look at Forge. Be kind to them during this awful time. Wren went on to say, and as people were reacting to this, he says, I do want to make sure that I call out how amazing the multiplayer leadership team was during the development. And that seemed to insinuate that he was moving passing the buck upward, not on 343, but on Microsoft itself, Microsoft leadership. Schreier said that he's heard similar versions of Wren's complaints from many other Halo developers. And I'll say, I've definitely heard similar complaints from people that used to work at Microsoft as well, that the leadership is, there's a lot of sort of vying for position inside that company, and not a lot of people were caring about games. I think that this is more evidence of that. I've never really like said that out like publicly, because I'm like, I don't know if I could confirm that. This just all feels like this is right in line with that stuff. More stuff from more developers. Another theme in the complaints about the management of 343 Industries was a heavy reliance on short-term contractors, a policy which some said came from the mothership at Microsoft. This is another quote. Don't forget the heavy reliance on contractors/vendors and that messed up system, though I know that's more Microsoft, said former Halo Infinite developer Nicholas Bird. that the contract stuff is a whole other can of worms that pisses me off. So many amazing people and talent that just disappeared. Agreed, Ren. As a Halo fan, I'm really tired of Microsoft business practices and policies slowly killing the thing I love, said Taylor Owens, a former Halo 5 developer, now working on Apex Legends at Respawn. Between the contracting policies they abuse for tax incentives and layoffs in the face of gigantic profits / executive bonuses, they set Halo up for failure. It's just as bad as it can be, right?
Yeah, I remember last time Halo Infinite and 343 came up on this program, we were speculating that maybe it's a leadership problem, and this absolutely confirms it. And I just don't know how you fumble the bag so hard. You know, like you get Call of Duty making, well, not annually anymore, but like every time a Call of Duty game comes out, selling gangbusters. And despite Activision Blizzard being Activision and Blizzard, they're making that game. But with Halo, it's almost like a golden ticket to the top that they still manage to fumble and mess up. I don't understand, Jeff.
Yep. I mean, they know it's important, and yet when you have this thing that can continue to be very special to a lot of gamers, it can be your crown jewel. You need to examine your practices, and if they are something that is like poisoning the things from the inside, like this contractor policy that creates an environment where people don't feel like they are permanently attached to it, and at any moment they can be taken away from it, and they don't have the benefits and the compensation that they think is fair, then things are going to spoil. And it's, I think that happened repeatedly throughout the development of Halo. And I think it's also indicative of a certain, we are more worried about our costs than about the eventual quality of the game. And that's, I get it. You want to make sure that you're not spending too much money, but it created problems where now this game definitely had a bigger budget because of all the delays. And it also had this bad reputation of not coming out when they said it would, and had a bad reputation of not having enough content when it came out and not enough support afterward. And all that stuff is going to cost you so much more in the long run that it circles back to, how does this happen? Incompetent leadership, frightened leadership. They are, and exactly what's happening now with the layoffs. It all comes back to just like, we could squeeze as much as possible from these workers the way that we already have it. And when things don't work out, we could just, if things might not work out in the future, we could just lay them off. It's like, man, that's not how you're going to end up making good games. Not today. You could have maybe got away with that stuff 15, 20 years ago. Today, you need every single person on a game operating in the best way possible. And even then, it's very unlikely you're going to make a great game because it's just that hard. And
especially at the scale that games have ramped up to, and as many people as that they're trying to reach out to. And the thing that still fucking gets me, Jeff, this is Halo. This is their crown jewel. When people think of the Xbox, they think of Master Chief, and it's in fucking shambles. Oh, Jesus Christ. And, this is my personal feelings, but I feel like short-term contractor work never works out for anyone involved, whether it's the actual employers or the employees. When you're like operating as a contractor, you are constantly under the stress of like, well, I know that I have a term of 6 months to a year, but then that could get cut at any time. And I also don't have any benefits here. And for as much as company cultures try and reinforce it, there's always a weird divide between whoever is a full-time employee, a senior staff member, and then the folks that come on as contractors. Because unfortunately, contractors wind up having like an odd reputation to them, even though that they don't mean to. I know that they'd love to be a full-time employee, but the employer, Microsoft in this case, just doesn't want to swing it because of, tax incentives for them, or it just floats their boat better to not have to cover all these additional employee benefits.
Yeah, it's obviously, it's just exploitation. It's like all work is exploitation under capitalism, of course. Like if they they paid you what you were worth, then they wouldn't make any money. That's the whole point. They have to pay you less than what you're worth in order to make a profit. Like that's how it works. But it's like, okay, well, if that's the system we're going to operate under, then we should have some rules in place to prevent the maximum exploitation happening at all times, because again, that's the incentive that these companies would have. And every time that they try to put these rules in place, it's like, well, if someone's going to be working for you for more than 9 months, then you got to bring them on permanently. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a great thing. And then these companies will be like, okay, then we'll just hire them for 9 months, and then we'll send them home for 3 months, and then maybe we'll bring them back for another 9-month contract period. That's like, fuck no, just do things in the spirit of the law, you motherfuckers. It's so infuriating.
News is going to get better from here, right, Jeff?
Let's finish off this hat trick of Microsoft stories, basically. Come on. This one is just, okay, whatever. Xbox exec praises devs for releasing games amid culture of cancellation. This comes from Ethan Gotch over at Kotaku. Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer juxtaposed the joys of gaming with the current sense of despair in the world after accepting the Andrew Yoon Legend Award at the 12th Annual New York Game Awards on Tuesday night. He also applauded creators who still release their visions into the world in the current culture of criticism and cancellation, a loaded line at a time when debates are raging about the ethics of boycotting certain games like Hogwarts Legacy. Here is what Spencer said. As world builders, our greatest responsibility is to inspire and invite joy, Spencer said. The veteran executive who spearheaded many of Microsoft's gaming acquisitions from Minecraft to Bethesda spoke about what games meant to him growing up and about the increasing difficulty of tapping back into that in the modern world. Continuing the quote, "It feels like today seeking joy is an act of defiance. We, all of us here today, all of our teams around the globe, we are all part of creating this echo effect of joy. Our creators who bravely and intentionally release their visions to the world, particularly in the current culture of criticism and cancellation, our players who bravely and intentionally carve out time for our games to invite, rest, and rejuvenate their lives, and business leaders. We are called upon to have the courage to protect and nurture this collective joy." While the Microsoft Gaming CEO has been an outspoken advocate for making Xbox a more diverse and inclusive force in the world of gaming, the line about our current culture of criticism and cancellation could be interpreted as an anti-woke dog whistle and strikes an unusual note at a time when an increasing number of developers and players expect game companies to be held accountable for their political views and ethical shortcomings. Let's pretend, Jan, that Phil Spencer doesn't fully, we're pretending now.
I'm putting my pretend hat on.
Yes, that he doesn't fully understand the implications of using that word cancellation. Maybe he's not seeing clips of that just being like every second of content on a Fox News or a number of like right-wing leaning podcasts. Let's pretend. A culture of criticism, getting like saying you're doing this in the face of criticism. That alone to me is worrisome from an individual who is building a collection of IP and a collection of talent that is massive in scale, and they're trying to get bigger at all times. And you were responsible for all these people, all their jobs, all these visions, as you say. How is criticism really like a frightful thing that you should be criticizing? Like that's. We should be welcoming that. It is a necessary part of how all this works. If you do something, it should be up for criticism. I mean, I'm someone who, like, that's our job, right, Jan? A lot of times it's just, we go out there, we criticize things. So when people criticize us, I have to remind myself, like, I do that constantly. I cannot then go on here and complain about people who criticize me.
Yeah.
The idea that you could be this rich individual in charge of all of Xbox and lambast criticism as something that is that kind of shouldn't be, it is once again infuriating. What is going on over at Microsoft?
I don't know, man. And the thing is, like, I've liked Phil Spencer in the past.
Same.
And you know, his stance on other parts of games have been like, oh, that's really nice of you, Phil. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's this statement that's just like, is there something in the CEO water this year that's like,
seems like it.
Like are they drinking the funny water right now? Because this isn't funny. At first, when I read the headline, I thought he meant game cancellations, like a project getting canceled.
Right? Is that what he means? But I just, in the culture of criticism and cancellation, I don't.
Those two words in like a singular sentence and like that statement, it's like.
Yeah, and again, that's why we're pretending. We're taking cancellation out of it. Let's just talk about the current climate of criticism. Like that.
And it's like, Phil, like, what do you expect? Do you expect people to just blindly just play games and you're celebrate? I don't know what he's celebrating. Like, what are you saying? Like, is an act of do you want people to play games? Do you not want people to play your games? Because either way, people are going to form an opinion, and it's going to be hard for people to even play games if Microsoft isn't even releasing games too.
Yeah.
So I guess that's an act of defiance on Microsoft's part of just not releasing anything. I don't know if that's the act of defiance that Phil is talking about here. The criticism part is like, dog, if I don't like a bagel, I'm just not going to go back to that bagel place. And the same thing applies to a game. And that bagel place isn't going to hate me for not liking the bagel. Phil, what the fuck are you doing, dog?
Yeah, honestly, like, criticism is a sign that people care. I mean, I think this is something most people, like, I don't even feel like I need to really say this stuff, but because people get it. If we're on this show criticizing these news stories, these decisions, these video games, it's because we care a lot, and that it's a sign of a healthy ecosystem. And I do think in the end that the criticism is a sharpening tool that ends up making everything better in the end. And I get that sometimes it can feel like, well, I can't do anything because I'll get criticized. Of course, I feel that way sometimes as well. I just also, as someone who runs a daily news show on a website about video games, I also recognize that we need the criticism, and it's okay. And it's not something that I should be out there saying, well, in this culture of criticism, I can't, like, I'm not going to, he's the CEO of Microsoft Gaming. How does he not get this? That is bizarre. He should not have said this, period. I mean, he could come out and clarify. It could be a misunderstanding. He should not have said this. This is an incorrect position to put out into the world. It sends the wrong message. It sends the wrong signal. And yes, he should not have said it.
It is a creative sphere. And within all creative spheres, there is criticism that is going to happen. Like, externally, internally, of course. Phil, it's part of the process, big dog.
Yes.
I'm not even gonna call him big dog. That's a sign of respect. And right now, Phil, little dog.
Yep. Little dog, Philly Spence. All right. Let's move along. I'm sure we'll have more to say about Microsoft, as I'm sure all these stories will continue into tomorrow. But let's move over to the other hot mess right now. Ubisoft CEO apologizes for internal comments after weak software sales. This comes from Ali Reynolds at Nintendo Life. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot has reportedly apologized to staff for a recent comment in which he stated that the ball is in your court to developers regarding getting the major publisher back on track. As reported by Kotaku, Guillemot took part in a company-wide Q&A session with Ubisoft staff and opened the meeting by apologizing for his previous comment. I heard your feedback, and I'm sorry this was perceived that way. The apology was allegedly in response to an upvoted question, which read, and this is from the developers, the ball is now in our court. For years, it has been in your court. So why did you mishandle the ball so badly so that we, the workers, have to fix it for you? Seems like a fair question. The drama follows news that Ubisoft has canceled 3 unannounced games, all the stuff we talked about previously about Ubisoft dealing with a lot of issues, and they're going to cut costs. And then Yves Guillemot sent out that memo to developers saying, hey, we need you to work so hard. The ball's in your court. Help us fix this. And in response to that, developers at Ubisoft Paris were asked by their union to prepare for a strike on January 29th. We don't know. That might still go ahead. But as of now, it seems like Yves Guillemot's like, oh man, I messed up bad. Do you think this apology is going to be enough, Jan, that he's like, hey, yeah, what do you think?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Hey, we have all these sports metaphors. Let's throw on like a transportation metaphor, right? Jeff Grubb, you say you ride a bus every day, same bus route, right? Let's say the bus driver has been driving the same bus route, makes a wrong turn, gets lost, and then he blames you, Jeff Grubb, the passenger. I don't think that's on you, the passenger that is helping fund the bus, that the bus driver who's in charge of said bus is fucking up. I think that's on him. And Yves, I'm not going to thank you for being the bus driver.
Yeah, and that's like, don't thank you for bus driver Yves. And I think that's like so. The way you put that too is like, because I would be like, oh, you need my help? Well, yeah, I want to help. Like, I want to make sure that things are going right. I want to get this bus back on track. And it's like, it's not my responsibility. I didn't get us in that situation. And yet I bet many of the workers at Ubisoft are like, oh, yeah, okay. And obviously many of them are like, fuck you. And I think that's the end point for a lot of people who start off saying, yeah, okay, like I want to do my part. The reason I have a job is because I'm a person who wants to help create things together with other people, and I feel a responsibility to all these things. Most people do feel that way. The point is that Guillemot here was trying to exploit that and knew he could exploit it or believed he could exploit it. And now that it's backfired, he's like, oh, I did not mean it that way. So what way did you mean it?
Yeah. The unfortunate part of this is that we're seeing a lot of this come out. And I know that these news stories to some folks may feel like the same news stories over and over and over again, but it's, I think it's perfectly fine to criticize, sorry, little dog Phil, criticize like these CEOs, because for so long they haven't been criticized. They've just been fucking flying underneath the radar for so long. And then it's been the employees, it's been us that have been feeling the effects. The people trying to enjoy the product have also been feeling the effects of the company work culture, because the product in the end doesn't live up to anyone's expectations.
Yeah, I mean, the ideal situation here would be we keep bringing these stories to the attention of the wider gaming public as best we can. The people in charge feel a little bit of heat and decide not to repeat those same mistakes, or the people above them replace them with someone who wouldn't make those mistakes. I mean, I think it's a little bit idealistic, but it is my hope at the very least.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Riot Games has reportedly made layoffs across several departments. Comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. According to award-winning esports reporter Jacob Wolf, Riot announced staff cuts across several departments on Wednesday. While the layoffs have yet to be officially confirmed, the former ESPN and .esports journalist, who now runs a Substack subscription letter, the Jacob Wolf Report, said he's been informed of the cuts at Riot by multiple sources. This is a quote from Wolf. Size and scope are unclear at this moment. So far, I've heard of effects across recruiting and human resources support in esports, he tweeted. We'll do more reporting in the morning for the newsletter. Wolf added, Riot's historically not made many reductions in force in the past, but it's in line with a broader trend in tech, gaming, and entertainment as economic hardships begin to affect many corporations. Those hardships are not really affecting these corporations. They are just imagining a future where they could and reacting to that. But still, even Riot is cutting jobs. And again, like Wolf said, Riot has not really done that before. And it's like, man, it's kind of an epidemic now. And it feels like this is why a recession is inevitable, because these companies have talked themselves into it and are behaving in a way where, of course, it's inevitable. Well, now it is, because 40, 50,000 people in a high-paying sector are all out of a job suddenly and going to be competing for fewer and fewer jobs. That's the kind of thing where you create the situation that you were worried about. And what can we do about that?
It's similar to like panic buying, right? For an upcoming storm, or when the pandemic first started, folks are like rushing to be incredibly reactionary rather than properly preparing to handle these things, and just making brash decisions without thinking of everyone that's going to be affected. And I know, hey, when you're up at the top, at an executive level, at a CEO level, you barely see the people that are at the bottom of the ladder. So you feel less inclined to behave like an actual human being. And I feel bad for everyone involved, not the people at the top, but then like the people that wind up keeping their jobs also have like survivor's guilt as well, of like, man, like I love my team, but now half of my team is gone.
Yep.
And then like you feel that survivor's guilt of still being at the company. And that creates like a vicious cycle of like, you start to dislike working there at that point. And then, God, yeah, I don't know. All these bigger companies preparing for a recession. Maybe, Jeff, they're making the recession.
Yep. It definitely feels that way. Now, I mean, someone in the chat pointed out, this is only one part of the economic, the one sector of the economy. It only has so much power, and I think that's right. I still think that a recession's not guaranteed. Consumer spending is still really strong across a bunch of other stuff, but this is the kind of stuff that spirals, where people in other sectors read the news of, oh man, even Microsoft, Riot Games is laying off a bunch of people. Should I be looking at ways to cut my costs too? And that is really the only way this stuff happens is we talk ourselves into it. It's how recessions always happen. And so a lot of times there are underlying factors that create that response in the first place, but we still have to kind of make it happen ourselves. And it's just frustrating to see happen before our very eyes. Again, Riot, a company that makes a lot of money, probably could afford to keep people around, maybe overreacting. At the same time, though, like their goal is infinite growth, like all these companies, and you got to what is the growth trajectory for Riot? They've definitely probably for League of Legends have reached many of the players that they were going to reach in previous generations. Now they got to wait for every new kid to age into League of Legends and make sure they're right there waiting when there's a lot more competition these days for the time of those players. So that looks pretty rough. Now they're putting out a lot more new games, and so Valorant keep growing, and they have the fighting game coming, but man, none of those things are a guarantee. They're just I get why these companies behave this way, but it's also it was still, as I said, frustrating to see. Okay, we got through those stories. I promise the rest will, for the most part, be pretty fun. So let's get into Returnal is coming to PC. This comes from Jan Esposito at Twinkfinite. Merely months after the PS5 launched, Finnish video game...
I'm sorry, I thought you said Twinkfinite, and then I was like, oh, this is a fun story.
Twinkfinite, that's what we say from now on. Jan Esposito at Twinkfinite. Merely months after the PS5 launched, Finnish video game developer Housemarque released its take on the roguelike genre with Returnal. The game caught the community by surprise, quickly rising the ranks to become one of Sony and Housemarque's biggest titles. Almost 2 years have passed since its launch, and Returnal is finally hitting PC. Ahead of its arrival on February 15th, a new trailer has dropped, and it reveals the benefits of experiencing this on the PC. Jan, did you ever play Returnal?
I played the first biome, in quotation marks.
That's right. That's what they call them.
Yeah, and I liked it, but then it just wound up being a little bit too much for me. I think the problem at launch was no pausing or no saving, right?
Right.
Like you just had to do a whole run.
Yeah, you could suspend your PS5, but if you got a call up from your friend and he's like, "Come play Call of Duty with me," and you would go play Call of Duty and shut down Returnal, you would lose your run. Yeah, they changed that eventually.
Okay, they did change that eventually, and they did add a co-op mode as well, correct?
Yes, they did. They did, absolutely.
Okay. It's a really neat looking game. I was absolutely baffled at the story. Not a good baffled, but not a bad baffled either.
Right.
Just a mid baffled. I know Matthew Rory has been really, really, really digging it, and his enthusiasm for the game is making me want to revisit it. This might be the thing that gets me to revisit it, and I hate because I could potentially just play it on a Steam Deck.
Yeah, I'm like waiting to see how it runs on a Steam Deck. I bet it's going to be pretty good on there. I gotten a lot of heat from PlayStation fans for giving it a 3 out of 5 when it came out, but that's like because it's a good game, and it is a good game. It's it feels great, it looks great. I thought the story was compelling enough. My issue was always just like it kind of doesn't measure up as a roguelike game. That's where it just because I had played a lot of Hades, and it unlike Hades where every run can feel so different and can keep you engaged because man, my character build feels like I just feel like I'm doing things very differently than I did last time, and yet I feel just as powerful or more capable in different ways. Returnal, every run kind of feels the same, or at least it did through the period where I played it. And that was always I think that's a failing of this game as a roguelike, but it still feels great, and I kind of can't wait to play the game with a keyboard and mouse. That seems like a real good time to me. So yeah, I'm into it. February 15th, I'll be playing it again, so look out for that.
Let's return to Returnal.
We will return to Returnal. Moving on, Nintendo AR patent is found, but this doesn't mean Nintendogs is coming to mobile, which is probably something people might have saw in a bunch of other headlines. This comes from Nintendo Everything. Headlines and forum posts may have you thinking that Nintendogs is set to appear on mobile following a patent filing. While it's possible Nintendo has something in development, things aren't quite what they seem. We've been, and this is again from Nintendo Everything, we've been taking an especially cautious approach to filings and trademarks over the past few years since they're given way more weight than they should. Essentially, it's pretty rare that anything substantial actually comes from them. As for what's being talked about today specifically, an AR patent from Nintendo popped up in the United States this week. Diagrams are included displaying a phone and a dog. Let me Bring that up here for everybody. A phone and a dog. That alone was enough to set the internet ablaze with speculation. Basically, people thought, hey, this must be Nintendogs coming to mobile. It's a dog phone, yes. This is from 2020 though, and they've implemented AR stuff into other games since then, like Animal Crossing Pocket Camp and a few other things. And there's been no whiff that they're actually doing Nintendogs. This is just an artist rendition for the patent. And maybe they had Nintendogs in mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a Nintendogs game is coming. Jan, what do you think? This definitely means we're getting Nintendogs, right?
Absolutely not. Folks need to stop being excited about any time a patent gets announced or leaked. Just because a patent is getting patented doesn't mean doesn't mean that said thing is going to happen. It's one of those things that, hey, sometimes a company is just looking out to, like, maybe we'll do this down the line. We'll just cover our bases now to save us in the future.
Yes.
And I guess that also doesn't help the speculation, but just because someone files a patent doesn't mean that they are immediately going to be working on it.
Yeah. You know whose problem it isn't? That the speculation is running rampant and PR is getting hit with a bunch of questions about this. The research and development division, they are in their own little world. They are like, we have that Nintendogs game. We could just use that as an example of what we were trying to do here. And then we'll put that in the pen and that'll be publicly available and anyone can see it and anyone can imagine whatever they want there. But we don't care. We got the patent filed. That's our job. So, and it's kind of like, that is how cut off research and development is. They are doing their own thing and they are focused on getting these things filed because that's their job. And the more patents they get filed for the company, the more impressive they look. And it kind of doesn't matter if that stuff gets implemented in the exact way that is just shown in the patent. That is someone else's job in design and in producing and publishing, that they get to worry about that. This is just often, this has no relation to any actual product that is in development or that is even being considered. So, I'm sure they are stuff it will continue getting implemented, but it doesn't necessarily mean in a Nintendogs game.
No.
All right, moving on. Sting's Wii Party RPG Dokapon Kingdom is coming to Switch. I brought this up, Jan. This comes from Alana Higgs at Nintendo Life because when I read about this somewhere, the phrase Mario Party RPG was explained to me. Jan, we might have to play this. It's only in Japanese right now. It hasn't been localized for the West, but I really hope it does because a Mario Party RPG, we might have to do that. We might have to, Jan. I think we have to.
No, this might put me on this. I might join the party side because of a JRPG in this, but maybe that will deter Dan from it. Right.
Maybe this is how we cure him. It's killing the head vampire with RPGs. Once and for all.
Right. Rocket propelled garlic. I like it. I like it.
Yes, we got to see if this could take him out once and for all. This is from developer Sting, not the wrestler, not the singer, the developer. I know, I'm kind of disappointed. I wish it was one or the other, maybe both. They got together and created a game development studio just called Sting. This is the developer behind Department Heaven games such as Riviera, The Promised Land, Yggdra Union, and Nights in the Nightmare. I don't know any of those. And this is a game that came out previously for the PS2 in 2007 and the Wii in 2008. I think even at that time they never came to the West. But it's a board game RPG is how they describe it. So, coming April 13th, 2023. Man. And then hopefully they announce a Western localization because that would be very cool. I'd be down. But RPGs do very well on the Switch globally, so kind of make it happen. And then don't tell anybody it's also a Mario Party game, and see what you can get away with.
Do you think this is actually a game of skill?
This might actually be a game of skill. Would it be even less a game of skill because you could just grind also?
Right. Is this what D&D is? Is D&D just like a board game?
Is D&D Mario Party RPG? I think so. Yeah. The Dungeon Master gives you a bunch of mini games. Oh my God, man! I think we've cracked the case there, Jay.
I think we cracked the code. I think people that play D&D really just want to play Mario Party.
Yes. I will be saying that to them from now on while not listening to them scream back at me.
Y'all both roll dice.
Yes. It's the same thing.
You pick a character, right? The character eventually I guess in the case of Mario Party, they roll dice, they play games. You got your little scenarios with orcs and stuff.
And most of the time, D&D characters are as like disruptive to the experience as a Wario or Waluigi, the most popular Mario Party characters. So yeah, I think we might be onto something.
I think we cracked the code. I think what this means now is that we need to have like an analog style Mario Party that is just a D&D campaign.
I love it. Oh my god. Yeah.
If you're a dungeon master somewhere
and you want to write us a campaign set in a Mario Party,
please.
Okay,
please.
Shit. Man, that sounds incredible. All right,
I call Monty Mole.
Let's get on to this last story here. If you're watching the video, you'll see that Drake is up on your screen, and I will explain why here in a moment. Drake now owns Pharrell's $20,000 golden PSP. This comes from Luke Plunkett at Kotaku. Producer, rapper, and anime enthusiast Pharrell Williams was, a very long time ago, slightly notable for owning a 14-karat gold BlackBerry. He says, I told you it was a long time ago. In 2008, to keep the theme going, he bought a PSP and commissioned a 14-karat gold PSP casing to replace the stock plastic. The shinier, much heavier PSP, it weighed 660 grams versus the 280 grams of a normal PSP, wasn't designed to just carry around in his pockets. To complement the extravagance of the handheld itself, which wasn't jewelry, he was still using it to play games on. Pharrell also had a custom Goyard case made up. Is Goyard, is that like a famous like fashion brand?
Yeah, Chef Goyardee. Yeah.
Chef Goyardee. Hell yeah, that's my boy. Why am I telling you this now in 2023? Well, partly because I only just found out about it and thought the idea of Pharrell Williams owning a golden PlayStation Portable is about the most Last Days of Rome act of a pre-GFC extravagance I could think of sharing on this website in a feature that's all about video game history. I'm also telling you this in 2023 because the very same PSP just turned up in a new Drake video after the Canadian rapper spent a few $1 million buying some of Pharrell's old stuff, mostly jewelry. Mute that there. The PSP is visible just a few seconds in, gets waved at the screen around 050, and gets very close to the camera at 129. It'll be coming up right here, right. Do we miss it? There it is. There it is, everybody. That's a golden PSP, all right. Man, what? Drake's a dork, right?
he's a big dork.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of problematic stuff about Drake right now, but his whole thing, and this is someone that liked some of Drake's music in the past.
Sure.
But Drake just seems like he is very insecure all the time and is constantly trying to compensate for those insecurities. Did you hear the news that like he created like a necklace with 42 engagement rings because he's planned on proposing to 42 women in the past? I remember hearing that, but I was also like, that can't be real because that's just so sad shit. Like that's real sad sap shit. Like what is going on there with this man? I think there's a lot of problems with Drake.
Seems like there might be.
Yeah, a lot of problems with Drake. The Drake might need to seek, I don't know, therapy.
Yeah.
Before retail therapy.
Right, yeah, before guys would spend millions of dollars on Pharrell's old jewelry instead of going to therapy. And that boy, that's Drake right there. Definitely.
Yeah. Also, folks in chat are saying it, but there have been definite grooming stories to come out near Drake. So yeah. Go enjoy the golden PSP that you'll never play with your actual child.
Yes. Got him. Damn. All right, let's get to the polls here. Do you think Ubisoft is still going to exist as a major publisher in 5 years? We asked this yesterday based on all the news from yesterday. 46.7% said yes. 53.3% said no. I think major publisher is kind of the key thing there, Jan. I think there's a chance that they slip out of relevancy. There was a lot of people like, they're already not a major publisher, and that's just not true. They definitely still are. But I think that there's a chance that things can go bad with like 2 more massive games of theirs, not massive the developer, but massive in terms of scope. And they're looking around and be like, we can't support this anymore. We have to majorly downsize. We actually have to sell to Vivendi or whatever, for not anywhere near what we think we're worth. And I think it could easily just sort of slip away and turn into something like where years later we're looking back and say, oh yeah, Atari still exists, or a THQ, that's still a name, but it's not the THQ that existed a long time ago. I don't know. What do you think?
I feel like it's slowly on that trend of happening. I don't know, because when I think of Ubisoft now, I just think of Rabbids and Assassin's Creed, and I forget everything else that they're working on or that they have underneath their studio. I think it's a realistic possibility. I know Mitch yesterday said 3 years. I think 5 years might be the make it or break it point. Oh, Tom Clancy's. Yeah, okay, yeah, they got the Tom Clancy's. I don't know. I feel like they could sell that to someone else.
Right.
Someone would be willing to buy that.
Yes. I mean, that's one of those things where it's like they consistently do still sometimes make money from Tom Clancy games, but the Tom Clancy games have also been the ones where they go bad and they freak out. It's like, man, are those really like the make or break games for you? It seems tough. All right, I have a poll for tomorrow. There's a way that like pollsters ask this question, like, is it going in the right direction versus the wrong track? I think this is right. Is Microsoft going in the right direction or on the wrong track? I just want to take people's temperature about, and let's say.
Take a temp, everybody.
Let's say is Xbox. Is the Xbox division. There we go. And I'll say right direction, wrong track. And I know I got a typo up there. In the meantime, Jan, what do we have going on GiantBomb.com?
After this, we have another episode. I'm sorry, Grubb of Grubbsy 3D. Blake Club returns. Later today, we also have an episode of Voicemail Dump Truck, another episode of Game Mess Mornings tomorrow, as well as Unprofessional Fridays. The apologies for folks wondering where the archive is for Grubber Lang. Had some stuff to attend to, but that will be up in just a sec after this program wraps. And we'll have some quick looks in the pipeline. Stuff is slowly starting to drip and come out.
Can anything bad happen tonight is the big thing that I'm concerned about.
Well, I almost didn't want to say it because nothing bad can happen on a Friday night. Okay, sure. Don't look at your calendar. Don't look at your calendar, folks. It doesn't matter. That's actual Thursday. But guys, please. Guys, please. Because the return to Giant Bomb, at least, for season 2, even though he's technically on a different season, but season 2 of Giant Bomb Friday Night Forkin'. That's right, the Windbag returns, everybody. Our good old pal, the Windbag, returns to Friday Night Forkin'. Yes, okay. All right. Real quick, we still got 3 minutes.
Yeah, we're good.
The Windbag has convinced me about Thaw, and I think I'm ready to join in on Thaw. Thaw, because winter makes everyone sad, right? The days get darker. Right. Days get shorter. It gets darker longer. It's cold. You're constantly missing like the summer weather. Just think of it as you're just constantly thawing.
Right.
And then like you go from spring, summer, fall to thaw, and then it's just like a thawing process. And then, oh, cool, spring's back around. Flowers are blooming and everything. We're out of thaw.
I love it. And Surface Kane says what we're all thinking. Then you celebrate the end of thaw with Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, just like all families around the world do. That's how we celebrate the end of thaw.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I like being frozen. Freeze everything forever. Hell yeah. Jan, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games and for talking about me.
I'm constantly talking about you. Nothing but the most positive things.
I appreciate that. Also, Jan, yesterday everyone yelled at me, says I need an outro song. You got anything in mind?
Well, here we go. We'll just do it. We'll do an a cappella version of it. Let me know when you're about to fade away.
And everyone, thank you for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. Hit it, Jan.
Thanks for watching and listening to Game Mess Mornings with Jeff Grubb, me, and you.
Minor key.